So the original title was talking about good gene jumping. So I found a picture on internet, and it's Marseille at the back. You don't know Marseille, but it's near the sea. So what? Ah, again. What can we speak? Oh no, hold on. What? Well, what can we speak about draining the right liver? It's because hepaticogastrostomie has been improved, safety of hepaticogastrostomie increased. There's no difference in the literature in terms of adverse events before publication of 2016 and after publication in 2016. But thanks to Juan Romero, who is working in Colombia, who spent a part of his time in our unit, sorry. We review all our hepaticogastrostomie from 2002 and to 2018. And as you know, Marc Giovannini, my boss, performed the first hepaticogastrostomie. And you see the curve, the progression of the number of hepaticogastrostomie, a rare event in the beginning, and now we perform 50 to 60 hepaticogastrostomie in a year. And you see there's no pin. It's a joke. It's you change? And you see the rate of complication. It doesn't follow the rate, the number of hepaticogastrostomie. So it happens something. With a statistical test, we can see it happens something with hepaticogastrostomie. We don't know exactly why, but we have a CO2, we have dedicated stent, we have a progress of coagulation, we have a progress of cystostom wire. And so with all this device, safety of hepaticogastrostomie has been improved. And why we can, why this idea to drain the right liver? It's because of a Klatskin tumor, it's because of stenosis of the hilum. Of course, you don't want to drain the right liver in case of distal malignant stenosis. So in case of Klatskin tumor, you have to drain the right liver in case of salvage therapy. In case of altered anatomy, because you have not access to the papilla and you cannot drain the right liver with ERCP. And maybe a new point, a scheduled complementary drainage by US in case of drainage of Klatskin tumor. So salvage therapy, sorry, is not an example of drainage of the right liver, but I will show you in the literature, it's really a rare event. In this case, it was a trap because the hilum was very low in the bile duct. The patient has almost 2 bile ducts, and we inserted the stent in the right duct. And after the drainage, we realized we did not drain the left liver, and the patient, because he had cholangitis, we had to perform salvage therapy. It means a new drainage by hepaticogastrostomie to drain the left liver, not the right liver, but we will begin to speak about the right liver. Why to drain the right liver in Klatskin tumor? Why to drain all the segment? ESG recommends to drain more than 50% on the liver, based on a paper, a French paper in Paris, a multi-centric paper. And we published 2 years ago a paper with 60 patients during 2 years of Klatskin tumor. And we show we have an increasing, we increase of 10% the liver drain. We decrease the mortality risk of 24% each time we increase 10% of the liver draining. We found an optimal drainage of the liver with of 71% to have to allow to the patient to have chemotherapy. And the optimum drainage for the better survival, it was 80% with multivariate analysis. So it's important to drain all the liver or a maximum of the liver. So to drain the right liver has a sense is explained by this theory of the drainage of the liver. And there is a new theory from Thailand to drain flat skin tumor with a combination of ERCP and EUS, but a scheduled EUS. It means you won't perform EUS in case of salvage therapy, but you schedule to perform ERCP with 2 stents on the right or maybe on the left, and to drain after your left or your right liver under US. I'm sorry, but the right liver is a rare event. I have to take to explain why we will drain the right liver by studies draining the left liver, but it's a very interesting study. They compare percutaneous group draining all the liver by only by percutaneous path, and a group drained by ERCP and EUS. There was, interestingly, we are in Thailand, so they have only cholangiocarcinoma. It's the country of the cholangiocarcinoma. The adverse events in the group, the 2 groups were similar. The survival was equal. The only difference was in the rate of recurrence obliteration. It's difficult to explain why, but there is a difference in favor of the group with US. You have in this paper, you have to notice there are 3 cases in the group, in the US group, who need a salvage therapy with percutaneous drainage. That's important because it means that maybe I will be back after. Maybe it's not one technique which is useful, but it's a lot of technique. The goal is to drain the liver. The goal is not a technique will win regarding the other technique. We already published a study before the Thailand study. We perform a flat skin tumor with a scheduled EUS because the EUS was performed before salvage therapy. We scheduled ERCP and EUS drainage to avoid to have too much stent through the papilla. Even most of the time in this picture, we have already a 3 stent for the papilla and another stent by hepaticogastrostomia. But that's the idea. And as you see, that is the history of the publication of the ILAM. The first publication was by our team in 2007 with 4 patients. And you have a gap with Ogura. And now you hepaticogastrostomia, drainage of the right liver appear in 2015. How to drain the right liver? We have 2 techniques. You can drain the right liver directly to puncturing the right liver. Oh, it's terrible. Okay. Directly puncturing the right liver under US and place a stent, a plastic stent in Japan. It's always the same story in hepaticogastrostomia. Japanese like a plastic stent because they don't work exactly in the same manner, and in Europe, it's a metal stent. And you have the other technique, the bridge technique. In case of altered anatomy, the figure is a bit false, I'm sorry. But the bridge technique, you drain the left liver in the right liver and the right liver in the stomach. So the bridge technique, there's of course few publications. You puncture It's case of altered anatomy. You puncture the left liver with your needle, your 19-gauge needle. In this case, we were lucky, the bile duct was very dilated. And you begin like a standard hepaticogastrostomie. We aspirate some bile to be sure we are in the bile duct and to send it to bacteriology. And then after with opacication, you check you are in the bile duct. It will happen. We saw with US the contrast. It's not useful. We are showing the bile duct, and here you see the contrast appear. Then you insert your cystostome. Your wire is in the bowel loop. It's not in good position. You will place your cystostome against the stenosis. The problem is you cannot really move your scope in hepaticogastrostomia. You are in the stomach and you mustn't move. So the only device you have is your cystostome and your nurse. It will be your nurse who will cross the stenosis and place the wire. Okay. This day, the nurse was very good. Insert the wire in the right duct. We have to cross the stenosis with the cystostome because you cannot use really your endoscope. You are in the stomach, he's moving. So you have no force. So you cross with the cystostome to facilitate the crossing of the stent after. It's a false image. I made a mistake in the mix of the movie, I'm sorry. And because you have we opacify to check we have a stenosis. And because you are not in good position with hepaticogastrostomia, we dilate also with a 4 millimeters balloon to be sure we will insert the stent. And then we can insert a stent. You have to choose a good stent with a very thin catheter. Always for the same reason, you have no force. You insert your stent in the right duct. Most of the time, it's the anterior part of the liver. You don't really choose where you can insert your wire. And you release your stent, and you must make attention to not insert too close your stent, because if you have no place to insert your hepaticogastrostomia, the adverse events will be terrible. So you place your stent, and after you finish with your hepaticogastrostomia. In the literature, you see there's not a lot of patients. Only in our series we have a morbidity because we have probably more patients. But morbidity in a few case series, it doesn't mean anything. In this series from Paris, they try to evaluate the feasibility and the attempt in which case you can you succeed to perform this drainage. Is probably very honest. Probably the reality it's not easy, and to insert the wire is often a failure. And the other technique is to drain directly the right liver. Sorry, I have no video. It's a rare event. We insert like choledostomy. You insert your scope in the bulbus, and you see the number of patients: 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 4. It's a very high number. It's a rare event. So that's why I have no video, maybe. And of course, with a rare patient, you have only feasibility and you have no adverse events, because if you publish 2 patients, you publish patients without complication. We have rare case in our unit. In this case, you see we inserted three stents in the right liver. The left liver was not drained. We inserted hepaticogastrostomia. We don't see it very well. And the patient had cholangitis. And to drain the branch duct of the right liver, we perform intra-hepaticogastrostomia. So it's a rare event. It's a lot of stents, and it was not easy to do it. So because it's a rare event, because it's a no event, we can say, we mustn't forget USBI drainage is not safe every time. We have rare severe adverse events, but they exist. Adverse events associated with USBI drainage predominantly include bleeding, bile leakage, pneumoperitoneum, stent migration, cholangitis. At the opposite with ARCP, or in which the adverse events most of the time are less severe. In meta-analysis, with 396 patients, we have the same rate of adverse event in USBI drainage on ERCP, but the type of complication, that is important, the type of complication is more severe in the US group. And complication, don't forget, is a risk to have not chemotherapy for the patient. And it's not US, of course, but don't forget percutaneous rendezvous exists. And percutaneous rendezvous is not as a low morbidity. There's no lot of studies. There's French studies in a team in which they were learning ERCP, so they have a lot of failure of ERCP. They perform a rendezvous technique. They succeed in the same time in 80% of the cases. The morbidity, the total morbidity was high because they had complication of the ERCP, but the specific morbidity of the percutaneous was very low, inferior to 10%. The morbidity of US drainage is probably 15%. And this another study from Germany in a team in which they don't perform a lot US therapeutic endoscopy. They perform a comparison between rendezvous technique, because rendezvous technique, you have not external drainage. Percutaneous drainage, classically, you have an external drainage to protect your drainage. If you perform a rendezvous, you just insert your wire, and you can remove your wire at the end of the procedure. And the difference between rendezvous technique and classical external drainage was significantly lower in the percutaneous drainage and was divided by 2. Where is I don't see the number. Yes, 1626. You have no study in which you can divide the rate of complication by 2 when you compare percutaneous US ERCP. The only problem with percutaneous rendezvous is the radiologist perform it and you would have to call him. In our units, it's not a problem because we perform percutaneous drainage, but that's probably the reason it's not widespread by endoscopists. And just a word, they have a low rate of complication and they perform rendezvous technique for indication where you have not to perform rendezvous technique. Here they perform enteroscopy. It should be a US drainage in this case. In this case, there is a duodenal stent, and in case of a duodenal stent, it has been published that hepaticogastrostomia is better. So I'm sorry, but it was a trap. This drainage of the right liver, it's a rare event. But just to sum up, we don't have to do what would be not good for the patient. And we have to keep in mind that ERCP should remain the first line of the drainage of the right hepatic duct. However, USB drainage is an additional essential tool to ERCP and to drain a palliative clad skin. And endoscopists should be able to perform USB drainage as a team of radiologists, interventional radiologists. The type of complication of USB drainage and mainly their severity have to be kept in mind. Although the drainage of the cat skin tumor has a high rate of complication without USB drainage. The salvage therapy is not debated, but draining the right liver under US could be very challenging. Even we don't have morbidity in the literature, you have to trust me for this case. But if you don't have patients in the literature, it means it is very difficult and probably most of the time not feasible. Scheduled US with ERCP to drain cat skin tumor is maybe the future, but percutaneous technique must not be forgotten in this challenging drainage. And maybe a new scope will be invented and you will be able to drain the right liver in the future, but for the moment, it's difficult. The key point is to adapt the drainage to the patient. The best you drain your patient, the best your survival will be. And this, whatever the technique. Nevertheless, sometimes patients just need best supportive care with a minimum of drainage. So adapting the drainage to the patient is probably the key point, but adapting the drainage to the center, maybe the second point, because if you have radiologist interventional, if you have endoscopist, you can manage your right liver drainage without US, of course. Thank you.